it is now my pleasure to introduce Matt Davidson to you. And for many of you who've been on these workshops before, that, an introduction to Matt is kind of superfluous because you already know how motivating a speaker he is and how involved he has been for what, 25 or more years now, Matt, in this work. When I think of Matt, there's two things that come first to my mind. The first of those two things, before I got to know him, was Smart and Good Schools. And Matt, along with Tom Lacona, wrote a very important book on smart and good schools because my belief as a principal and a superintendent was always that we had to have a balanced view of what student achievement is all about. And that balanced view includes the smarts and the good. And the smart part of it is the academic learning, the cognition, but the good is the work that we all do in these organizations. The good is ethics, core values, character development, social emotional competencies for kids and staff. And so that always resounded with me. So that's the first thing I think of. The second thing I think about with Matt is the focus that he's had for years on performance values and the importance of being able to not only know what it is to do, the ethical or moral part of it, but also to have the perseverance and the diligence to make it happen. And that's the second thing I think. I think the first time Matt and I actually met was at one of the national forums in Washington. We sat at breakfast one day and had a conversation about this. And so that's the second thing I think about. But there's plenty of other things that, that really speaks to Matt's importance. I mean, his current role is he's the founder and the president of the Excellence with Integrity Institute. And that particular institute has put together a curriculum and has done a whole lot of things with schools and with sports and with everything else. And I'm not going to get into too many details because I think we sent a bio of Matt out with the information. But what I can tell you is that today's title is Practical Strategies for Building the Social, Emotional, and Character Development Foundations Needed for Back to School Success. And that also includes, and it's very important because students, one of the things that students suffered through with the pandemic was a lack of socialization in school. And that's where the culture of kindness comes in. So without further ado, I'm going to let Matt play off of what I just said, and I know you're going to enjoy what he has to say. So here's Matt and his presentation. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks very much, Bill, for a really warm introduction. Arthur probably said it best. There's a lot of friends on this call, a lot of relationships. Arthur was somebody that I met, believe it or not, back in the early 1990s, and was kind enough to read my dissertation, was kind enough to give feedback and to challenge the work and to honor it with his time and energy. Character.org is an organization that I've worked with and contributed to really since one of the first or second conferences that they ever had. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York, these are places that I've been to and I've worked with for a long time. And, one of the things that says in scripture is you can't be a prophet in your own hometown. So as soon as you talked about friends and all these familiar people, I thought to myself, oh man, I'm doomed. There's nothing I'm going to be able to say today to get these guys fired up. In all seriousness, I really want to try and once again provide something foundational, something useful. I think early on in my career, I wanted to be liked. All presenters do. I wanted, people to give me a 5. I really liked him. I can honestly say that I think my biggest desire is that I would be useful, that the things that we would share would be helpful to you. A couple of quick things. I'm going to use the Menti, which we've done before. I want to make sure that I just do a quick PSA, 2 minutes, stay with me. My board gets very upset. The reason we do these talks is so that we can promote the materials and the goods that we've created. As they say, There is no mission without the margin. So one, I want to make sure that you know the work that we're doing now draws upon that foundational smart and good work that Bill talks about. It is still seeking to integrate in an eclectic and thoughtful way all of the various things that schools are challenged by and all of the theories informing that. That includes social and emotional learning, 21st century skills, and the various kinds of character. The essentials are the curriculum that we've developed over a series of time. And early on, people would say, is it a program or a process? In my estimation, that's a no longer valid argument. It's a no longer valid discussion. You need both. You need programs, you need processes, and you need them to be integrated and interlinked. We have schools that utilize our materials that are social and emotional learning skills, that are character count schools, that are character.org schools. You need both the process and the programs. We have found a primary distribution partnership with our partners at the Robert D. and Billy Ray Center in Iowa. So we were really trying to stay focused on the design and the material formation, the theory and ideas, and we really needed somebody that could really help us to do the training and the distribution, and that's our partners at the Ray Center. We have developed a series of program and curricula that are based on the tools that I'm going to tell you about today. I'm showing you them because in the past, I wait till the end, 2 seconds, throw it out there, and it's unsatisfying to our board because it seems like you talk for 90 minutes and gave less than 40 seconds on what people can actually get after it once they are done. These materials are there. I encourage you to check them out. If you're looking for a curriculum, if you're looking for tools and strategies to go after a particular area. Finally, I want to talk about our assessment. It's there and it's there for you. It's valid, it's reliable. It's part of that school culture and climate compendium. It's been used in New York and Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It has been used by National Schools of Character to help intentionally plan what they're doing. The evaluation component is a key part of the character.org format and framework. One of the early pioneers, the people that I really gravitated to, was Jim Lemon, a guy who did the research on the history of character education, connecting how it came in and out of educational vogue, and oftentimes how that was linked to assessment. You may not need this for next week, but I will tell you, if you haven't done it in a while, especially coming off of the COVID, think about an intentional approach to assessment that would help you guide your work. This is a little bit of the panel of the data and what it looks like. And what schools start to get is multi-year, multi-stakeholder comparison that is a formative tool for improvement. It tells you what should we focus on? Where are we weak? What are we doing well? What are our areas for improvement? The assessment can drive your implementation. It can help you build the credibility for what are we doing? Why should we do it? I'm troubled and I guess comforted that, history repeats itself by the number of people who are actually asking the question, should we be doing character education? When we first got started in the early 90s, the first 10 minutes of every presentation was why you should do character education, why it's not religion, why it's not political, what the research says about it. There's a lot more research out there about your program, but I would say to you, with the COVID and everything else, if you haven't done assessment in a while, think about at some point within your plan this year, getting baseline information. And then finally, I would just say, Jason Lamping is one of the contact people that can really help you. He's on the call. He and his staff are very, very thoughtful. That's the PSA. And again, hopefully in this PSA, what you see here is a little bit of what I'm going to try to do. Practical theory, practical tools to help us really drive this forward. I wanted to begin a little bit using Menti. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure today with the number of people that we've got and where people are, how much we're going to use this. We've used it before, and it's a way in Zoom to give you a chance to get some feedback. So if you've got your phone, right, you sign on to menti.com. You don't even have to put in the www. Put in that menti.com, and there's your code. once you sign on there, it'll ask you for your code, 35846949. I don't know why, but it seems like we just did the Pennsylvania or New Jersey lottery. But you sign on to the Menti, you type in our code. This code keeps you in the meeting. You don't have to enter anything in after this, all right? And it allows us a chance to interact where you can have some of these questions like this for us to kick it a little bit. So we'll see how this first one goes. If we get people logging in their answers and looks like something that's really helping, great. If not, we'll skip over it. What I want to do as I check in with you is I want to know something you're excited about as we begin the school year. We know that this has been a difficult time for educators and teachers. We know that you got some post-traumatic stress, literally and figuratively, from these years that we're coming off of. We know that it's been a time where people feel very demoralized. Rich Roll, the podcaster, he has a phrase, mood follows action. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to remind people that you're not going to feel grateful or excited unless you begin to form the habit of thinking about what you're excited about, what you're grateful for. And so I'm asking you to think about this a little bit, these social connections, meeting new students, making connections with the new students, connecting with colleagues, collaboration. These are some of the things that, one, we are excited about. Two, at times they have been taken away from us because of the COVID realities. These new opportunities to advance student skills and decisions. If you think about what we're excited about, I don't know, there's something about the start of the school year. It's like the preseason. Every new school year you get excited. And when I was doing this presentation, I thought to myself, it's amazing that I could put this much time and energy and worry and planning into what we're doing for something that I've been doing for almost 30 years. How do we get ready for the start of the school year? But what we're trying to do is remind ourselves, this is new, this is exciting, this is something that we want to do. All right, we got about 7 people logging in. I'll give you one more chance. If you were a little slow logging in on the Menti, we don't have to have everybody doing every one. So the first one asks you what you're excited about. The second question is what you're anxious about, what you're nervous about. If you think about what we're trying to prepare within ourselves to get ready for this school year, there's some things that we're excited about and there's some things that we're anxious about. A lot of times when you come off of a difficult experience and you're getting ready to go back into it, the hardest thing is the worry about what will be, the worry about, hey, what's going to happen? Is it going to be like last year? Is it going to be something that we continue to struggle with? If you think about what you're excited about and what you're anxious about, you really start to get an idea of what's going on inside of you, what you're bringing to the table. All right, we got fewer responses on this one. I'm going to do some of these, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this. All right. One of the things that I want you to realize, though, is as we start this and we're thinking about what can I do for my students? There was a teacher once on our National Schools of Character site visit, I think, who said to us, you can't give where you won't go. And if you think about what you're anxious about and what you're nervous about, we have to really get in touch with what's going on inside of ourselves so we don't go back to the school year and start thinking to ourselves, those darn kids, I got to fix them. I got to fix the school. If you want to be excited, if you want to be joyful, if you want to be grateful, if you want to be present, we got to work on what's going on in ourselves. And what has happened over the last couple of years, to be very honest, people have not been very good to each other. Not parents, not kids, not communities, not colleagues. We've been uncivil and we've been harsh and we've been difficult, and that leaves some wounds. And what I'm trying to get you to do as we get started is not just a throwaway community builder, but it's get you to think about the fact that just like me, everybody else is trying to do some of these same things. And I want you to think about those administrators, teachers, students, parents, just like me, all others are trying to be happy. They're trying to avoid suffering. They've known sadness and despair. They're trying to meet their needs. They're trying to learn how to live. If we can come into the year reminding ourselves that as much as we seem to be divisive, as much as parents and kids and colleagues feel like they're not like us, they're the other. If we can come in and realize what we share in common, we have a better way of really beginning to connect with them. Just like me, all students, all teachers, all parents, what? They want the place to be safe. They want it to be productive. They want to be heard. They want to be valued. This is why I would argue again and again and again that character education, it may go out of educational vogue. It may go out of what people are talking about. You may have to battle to remind people to do it, but it has never lost its relevance in the mind of schools and practitioners. What I want to hammer on today is this idea. I want this to be a kind of manifesto among friends, among colleagues, among people who I assume are committed to doing this because you're on the call. Because if you're not on the call right now, taking in this webinar, you're listening to it, on your own time. I want us to be a kind of manifesto where we remind ourselves what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And here's what I would say to you, character educators, shape your culture. Shape your culture. This is our little visual, this understanding of what we're trying to do. Look over to the right-hand side, optimal performance. This is why schools exist, to help kids become smart, to help them become good. We want the highest level of excellence we can get achieved with integrity. You're doing character education so that you have reduced disciplinary referrals, school safety, increased test scores. All of those performance things are what you're ultimately going for. Don't lose sight of that. When people ask, why we do character education? Because culture eats strategy for lunch. If you want these test scores, these grades, where do they come from? You look back and you go, we want these individual habits and competencies, character. We want them to be these values in action, these social and emotional skills. We want to shape these individual habits. Why? Because if kids have perseverance, grit, toughness, they're going to do better on their tests. If it's a respectful, caring, responsible environment, if you're safe to learn, tests are going to go up. But the reason we're putting the weight of our foot on culture is because what we would say is culture shapes, culture corrupts. If you put an honest, smart, hardworking kid into a lazy, lying, cheating, unsafe school, more often than not, they become like the culture that they're within. If you want to think about this from a character education perspective, you can think about it from the work of Lawrence Kohlberg. He started out as a cognitive psychologist looking at the stages of moral development within the individual. Character, individual moral character, looking at justice, looking at caring. The second phase of his work went to culture. He was looking at the just community schools. He was thinking about Israeli kibbutzes. Why? Because he realized you can't fix an individual very easily. What we need to do is think about the culture that they're in. What are our collective habits? What are our collective strengths? What are the collective things that we're trying to do? And then you push it out one more and you go, well, who shapes that culture? Leaders. It doesn't matter to me whether you're a superintendent, a principal, a classroom teacher, an aide. You are a leader in some way, shape, or form, in the sense that you are shaping the expectations, the habits, the mindset, and the accountability within the groups that you lead. Leaders shape culture. But what I really want to go after and what I'm going to stay on is this idea. Everything can fall into this category of shape your culture. Two things we know about the power of culture: that collective safety, collective confidence. This is what predicts the kind of social, moral, intellectual, and academic outcomes that we want. So if you want to know why should I take the time to shape my culture? I'm a character educator. Because when you think about the collective habits and the collective safety and trust, that individual and collective responsibility going hand in hand, what the research says again and again is it's our collective confidence that leads to those test scores. It's our collective safety that leads to the social moral outcomes that we want. All right, so shape your culture, but with good reason. We know today, coming off of the COVID, for a variety of reasons, the big interruption in education, the time at home, the political battles, the culture battles, when you bring people back into school, they literally have forgotten what we do, and more importantly, why we do it that way. In every year, every leader is incumbent to explain their why. The reason leaders start with why is because when we forget what we do, then all of a sudden we get multiple ways of doing things. Culture, a shared way. Lack of culture, unintentional culture, destructive culture, multiple ways. Everybody doing it their way. So one of the things that I would say, from my mentor, Tom Lacona, Tom had the ability to capture really profound things in real simple terms. As we go into this year, we're trying to practice what we preach. If you say our values are kindness and honesty and trust, you better have habits that practice that. But I think Tom's second part of this is often neglected. You must preach what you practice. Explain your why to parents, to kids, to colleagues. Why do we line up that way? Why do we not do it that way? Why am I asking you to raise your hand to bring everybody silent in group work? Why do we get together in morning meeting? Why are those words on the wall? Sometimes we get defensive. And so we see today, parents going, why should we do character education? We're behind on test scores. Isn't this political? You can get defensive and think, I can't believe I have to explain why. Trust me, I share that sometimes. It's, it's an impatience, and it's that feeling of like, I feel like I've been explaining this forever. But look at it and extend the plus, go positive and say, look, what if people genuinely just want to know? I can't remember why we have staff meetings. I can't remember why we start our meetings this way. I can't remember why we end our meetings this way. As leaders, whether it's your classroom, whether it's your parents, whether it's your community, as we start thinking about how do you shape your culture, I would say you cannot spend enough time, one, reflecting on what is our why. And if you can't remember why, hey, it may be something you can let go of. If you can remember your why and you can re-explain it, it's one of the first steps to getting buy-in around what we're doing. Now, I began by asking you, what are you nervous about? What are you excited about? It's a kind of intrapersonal self-awareness. And what I was saying is, if you can't get in touch with what's going on in yourself, if you don't have a kind of self-awareness, which leads to self-regulation, you're going to have a hard time connecting with kids, connecting with parents, connecting with your community. Part of what we're seeing in classrooms and with kids is a kind of impulsive, a kind of unregulated emotional state, a sense of entitlement, a sense of almost spastic. They think if they do it, I don't have to wait in line, I just go. We're hearing from educators again and again. And before you would go to behavior modification, part of what I want to point out is that with the COVID and with everything going on, what we really need to do is calm our kids down. Help them as we help ourselves to repeatedly get in touch with what's going on in our side of ourselves. Now, we know this. These are two really important social and emotional skills. My question is, are you going to do a fix the kid approach or a fix the culture? Are you going to should all over kids? That's what Steve and Glenn used to call it. Shooting all over people. Hey, you should get aware of what's going on in self. You should do this. Or are we going to change our habit as a classroom and as a community? In the past, I've given you a couple of these different options where I would show you ways that we could quickly get in touch with what's going on inside of ourselves. What's your word? Anxious, scared, mad, sad, excited. What's your word, right? So you have your classroom put down their word. What's your number on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm a 1, I'm a 3, I'm a 5. Why? Why are you a 5? What I'm trying to do is to get the entire class, you can almost imagine the lights go down. Everybody calms themselves. I have you thinking about what's your word, what's your number. I'm literally calming you. Lights are down, and I've got you in the right part of your brain where you're reflecting. What's the story you're telling yourself? I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm frustrated. Once I get in touch with what's going on, this is that beauty of that phrase, mood follows action. I need kids to be less anxious, less spontaneous, to slow down, to calm down. Turn the lights down and have them reflect. Get that little inner work journal where they're looking at what's your word, what's your number. Use quotations. I'm going to talk more about how we go back to this old practice that is ever new and ever profitable, the use of quotations. Just have you, what is this? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Reflect on what that means to you. These are nuggets of wisdom that are almost like what the Buddhists would call a koan, a kind of spiritual reflection. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. I don't even know. The lights are down. We've got 30 seconds right on this. Now, if parents want to know, why do you have the lights down and why are you asking kids to reflect on a quote? Three reasons. One, we're trying to calm them in between periods. Second, we're trying to help them to do some writing. Third, we're trying to work on self-awareness and self-regulation. Fourth, I'm about to teach them math, and I want to have them open up to the idea that whether they think they can, they think they can't, they're right. It took you 90 seconds, but if it's calibrated and you know why you're doing it, your collective habit shapes the individual habit, gives you what you need. I'll give you one additional one that I've been using on lately. Highlight, low light, flashlight. What's been a highlight of your day, your week, your month? What's been a low light? Day, week, month, afternoon, morning. Who or what has been a flashlight? Who or what has given you hope? Who's been a friend? Who's somebody that's encouraged you? Highlight, low light, flashlight. Why am I spending time on this? One, shape your culture. What I'm saying is we've got to build in these habits early and often so that you begin to form the habit within your students. Why? So that collective habit starts to shape the individual character, which helps you form the bandwidth you need for those outcomes you're going after. Hopefully you get an idea of what I'm hammering after. And what I want to say about this is, after all these years of doing this stuff, I do want to be helpful. I do want to be useful. I worry about, hey, have they heard my shtick? Do I have anything new? And I've gotten to a point where I can make myself crazy about that. What I want to have you thinking about is this. You are strength and conditioning coaches for culture. You are trying to build up the muscles needed for teaching and learning. If you go to a strength and conditioning coach that's any good, they have you do the exercise. They're not doing a bunch of inspirational stuff, talking about the exercise. And some of those exercises they have you do every single time, whether you like it or you don't, whether you're familiar with it or not. And what I'm partly saying is, let's go back to basics. But what I don't mean by that is just go back and do what you've always done. Go back to basics, meaning what do we need? What do human beings and human communities need? But do it with consistency and intentionality. I'm doing this now because what I know about kids and what I know about the culture and what I know about the COVID. It's old school meets new school. We're trying to work it out. All right. Another way for me to say this, shape your culture. The back to basics, what I mean is I need us to think about shaping an intense and intentional culture. Intense and intentional. I'm talking to a bunch of people on this webinar who I assume are already doing an awful lot in terms of character and culture. I am not talking to you like you're doing it wrong or you're not doing it right or you're not doing. What I'm saying to you is, as they say, when you go hunting bear, don't bring just enough gun. I am telling you that on our culture, in my opinion, we need more intense and intentional culture than we've ever needed before because of all the noise that we're fighting against. What do I mean by intense? Strong, deep, passionate, concentrated, powerful. It's not surface level. It's not cheesy, contrived crap. That won't work, right? Hey, we got posters on our wall. That's not enough. We got to teach. We got to make sure that what those posters are. We got to reflect on them. We got to have habits where people are practicing. What do I mean by intentional? Purposeful, positive, plan, proactive, not reactive. And I'm going back to this idea from Jim Comer, right? No significant learning ever took place without a significant relationship. Great. I know that, Matt. We do build relationships. I hear you. What I'm saying is you've probably never had to build the depth of relationships, the significance of relationships in the past that you do now. I don't know when in history we've had more of a deficit in terms of kids actually needing deep relationships for learning. They're behind. They're struggling. They're emotionally struggling. They're right. So what I'm saying is intense and intentional. I'm going to skip the mentee just because it seemed like it, it worked and it didn't work. All right, let's go on. Let's ask the questions, but I want you to think about these in your head. How do you know when a teacher cares about you? How when a teacher does not care about you? This is Catherine Wenzel's, sort of foundational research on 12,000 middle school students. How do you know when a teacher cares about you? How do you know when they don't care about you? Look at what the students said. Teacher makes classes interesting, talks and listens to students, is honest, fair, and trusting, shows concern for students as individuals, asking whether or not they need help, asks if something is wrong, makes sure they understand what is being taught. The question is coded for caring, a moral character strength, but note the connection to performance character and to performance. When a teacher teach well, keep it interesting. Ask me questions. If I look lost, find out what's going on. How about the reverse of that? How do you know when a teacher does not care? Boring or off task. Keeps teaching when the student isn't paying attention. Ignores, interrupts, embarrasses, insults, or yells at students. Shows little interest in students, forgets their names, not doing. These two slides, if we could go back to something that is, quote, familiar to us and quote, pray over it. Get familiar with it. This is old and this is new. This is current. Why would a teacher ignore, interrupt, embarrass, insult, or yell at students? Well, frankly, because students are in a tough spot right now and they're not easy to teach or love. Second, control is not getting set. I'm tired. I'm stressed out. I'm maxed out. But this codes is not caring. And risk accumulates. So over the course of the year, if we start out doing this stuff, where's it going? Down, down, down. That's why when we're talking about intense and intentional at the beginning of the year, what teachers often want to know is how much of this warm, fuzzy character stuff do I have to do before the culture's in place? And I would say more intense, more intentional for a longer duration than you probably would like. How does culture develop? Slowly and then suddenly. Slowly. And then all of a sudden you realize people are starting to do these things and you're starting to make up time. How does culture, unfold, go bad? Slowly and then suddenly. You don't do the early work, you start having these behaviors going on. Next thing you know, you've got a real incident with a complaint from a parent, triggers the school board, and you're in the middle of it. You know where I'm going with this stuff. How do you know when a teacher cares? How do you know when a teacher doesn't care? Now come back to these foundational things. What is a caring community? Eric Sheps, God love him. He did such good work, and he also had the ability to do great research and then summarize it into really concise wisdom. A caring school community is a place where you're known, needed, safe, cared for, and have voice. Known and needed, safe, and cared for, have a voice. What I would say to you is if you're leading teachers, this is the simple slide that you want to put up, and you can really begin to ask them, hey, what should we start, stop, continue, or improve to make sure the kids are known, needed, safe, cared for, and have voice? Remember, you can have this PowerPoint. You're going to have all of these slides if you need to make notes. What I want to show you again and again is, Kurt Lewin said, there's nothing so practical as good theory. So I showed you that previous slide. Ooh, fantastic, Matt. That comes from the Child Development Projects. That's really fancy stuff, peer-reviewed research. You're not a teacher. You don't have to do this stuff with kids tomorrow. Cut to what I really need. What I'm saying is You can use this to engage kids. So in other words, to help kids know that they're safe and cared for, and to give them a voice in your classroom, begin the year by having this conversation. How do you know when the teachers here care about you? How do you know when they don't care about you? We're writing it up on the board. I don't care what grade you're in, you can make this developmentally accessible. Come on, let's go, let's brainstorm. Maybe you do care about in day 1, don't care about day 2. Day 3, how do you know when how do teachers know when a student cares? How do teachers know when their students do not care about their teachers and classmates? What are the student behaviors? The process is the intervention. We know that these are important things, but by engaging students, we're reminding them. We're saying to them, you want to be cared about by having people meet you at the door, know your name, be able to learn. You also don't want your peers to be interrupting us, to be talking out of turn, to be distracting. You get where I'm going with this. The process is the intervention. And what I'm saying to you is, I don't have to say it, even though sometimes I use that language, but don't assume anything. And you know why? We have to go back and become intense and intentional. And we have to go back and assume that no one remembers anything. Assume that no one remembers anything, and that we're going to go back and we're going to try and teach them who we are and what we do and why we do it that way. I want you to keep thinking about these questions. Keep thinking. Now, again, if you're a leader shaping culture to shape character, if you're a leader of teachers, they should be thinking about these things. If you're a leader of students, you should be asking the students at whatever level where they are. What's this look? What's this sound like? What's this feel like? Now, and look, I assume you're friends. I assume you're advocates for character education. And so today I would say this is the 3rd presentation. This is the 300 level presentation. I know that you guys are under intense scrutiny to do this at a very, very high level in very difficult circumstances. So I'm going fast on some of these things, and we're making jazz. We're not just laying out the notes. So I'm telling you, have a conversation with your students. If you think that's character education, that's only the beginning. And what I'm saying is a conversation, no matter how good, does not a culture make. An event, we did that. That was our opening activity. We asked about how do you know when a teacher cares? How do you know when they don't care? It was really great. Students love it. We had great. What I'm saying is you take that first piece and you convert that dialogue into a compact agreement or set of norms. What we call our Compact for Excellence, one of the tools that we've built. These are a set of we agreements. The first was a dialogue, an audit of our culture, what we want to see achieved and avoided. What we're putting down is what are we going to do? What are we not going to do? And then we're going to go down to the praise and polish. Hey, we said we were going to do these things. Everybody signed on that to show their commitment. Let's do a little praise and polish. How are we doing on these things? Where are we slipping? What can we do better? What can we do different? This quote that I love, there's no such thing as justice. There's just us. There is no perfect teacher, classroom, school, home. There's just us. We have to come back and make it. And so we had a conversation about how we like things, what we're going to really want and need. We agreed to them. We committed to them. We reflect on those. And where you stumbled, dig. Because you had a conversation, because you have an agreement, character and culture don't develop miraculously by pronouncement. It's strength and conditioning. You got to keep practicing it. One of the beautiful schools that we visited, one of the things they would say is we don't punish, we practice. If you realize that we're not doing a very good job of avoiding humor that hurts or giving feedback or controlling our impulses, you got to practice it. Hey, all you wisecrackers who have these funny one-liners that are bringing down the class. By the way, I was one of those guys. I got a pad of paper. I want you to write down all your funny wisecracks, all your that's what she said jokes, all your any of those things that you know would distract the class. At the end of the day, I'm going to give you a chance to share one that is clean and funny that you really wished everybody could have heard. I'm doing two things. I'm practicing self-regulation. You thought it, you don't have to say it. Write it down. Oh, that's pretty good. I'm giving us a structure at the end of the day where we can introduce some humor, a little bit of voice, a little bit of time for us to play a little bit. We're practicing that. You see where I'm going with this. We go from the conversation driven by research. It's a research-based practice about what a caring community requires. Then we're creating a set of norms. Now we're practicing it and giving it feedback. Once people put these things up, what they always want to know is, there's this sense of frustration like, Matt, I don't know. I had the conversation. We have a compact hanging in our room. They're still being disrespectful. I can't promise you a culture muscle if you worked out twice. How long do you have to work at it? I don't know. It depends. Depends on what kind of deficit they're coming into, your culture, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the intentional, intensive culture work that we're talking about. Now, let me just give you an example, right? You can have this tool of our compact to adapt or adopt. Let me give you an example of the kind of compact I might create out of, a typical, what do teachers who care do? What do they not do? It might look something like this. Hey, let's give others your full attention, listening with eyes and ears. As a teacher, when kids are laughing and distracting, and then you're saying like, hey, you need to pay attention. I was listening. I need eyes and ears. See me. Give the respect you want to get. Hey, the kids list and the teachers list is pretty similar. If you want to get it, let's give it. We don't say can't, we try. When people stop, they shut down, they keep telling themselves they can. It doesn't make for a very productive learning community. Give your best, encourage others to do the same. What does it mean to encourage? No, I'm not laughing when they make a mistake. You get where I'm going with this. Own your mistakes. None of us is going to be perfect. Fix them, flush them. Fix your mistakes. This is restitution. You broke it, you fix it. What can you do to help them feel better about what you said? How can you get us back some time? And then the sooner we can flush it, move on and move past it, the better. You see where I'm talking about? Not general, vague. Our compact says honesty. It says caring. It says kindness. I don't know what you want to do better or differently, and there's too many places for our culture to get away with a whole bunch of stuff that we really want them to do better or differently. This is the compact template. It'll be in your PowerPoint. Some of our oldest, simplest tools are our best tools. We now do work in the workplace. We do work with Division 1, 2, 3 athletic departments. We get paid by Fortune 500 companies to help them do compacts. Don't run past something that is simple thinking that it's simplistic. It's not. If you do this right, you've got very, very thoughtful character development going on, shaping culture. You're looking at the research on responsive classroom, child development project, effective relationships, self-regulation. All of those things come into action when you do it well. Let me give you a couple of examples of some schools we visited. I dug these out of the archive because I felt like sometimes I'm short on the stories these days and more on the strategy. Sauhegan High School was one of the smart and good schools we visited. And I want to make sure that people know, like, hey, a lot of character education, once again, is perceived as stuff we need to do at the elementary and middle school level. Couldn't be further from the truth. High schools are struggling as much as anybody else to be intentional. Look at this kind of compact that they created. Think about how teachers care, how they don't care. Respect and encourage the right to teach and right to learn at all times. Beautiful, sharp. We can evaluate that, put a 10-point scale on it and go, how are we doing? Be actively engaged in the learning. Ask questions to collaborate, seek solutions. Really, really thoughtful stuff about active engagement in the learning. Sitting there and just looking at your paper, not trying, be on time and fulfill your commitments. Be appropriate. Demonstrate behavior that's considerate of the community, the campus, and yourself. By the way, I'm a huge fan of adopt, adapt, or abandon. When you see something that's good, take it. But don't just take it because it looks nice. Take it because your classroom, your school, your community needs this muscle. You're a strength and conditioning coach who's looking for workouts for particular muscles. Don't just, ooh, that's nice. It's a shiny object. Be truthful. Communicate honestly. We know that there's a lot of problems right now with honesty and honest communication, not telling the whole truth. Beautiful. Be responsible and accountable for your choices. You talk about the Sauhegan 6, and people sometimes say, look, I got to hit the ground running. Do I even have a day or a period to do this in an inductive way with my classroom? What I talk about is synergy, not democracy. You don't have to take 2 days, vote on these things, hash them out, revise them. You could start with these and then ask your classroom, hey, let's affirm, clarify, challenge. Is there anything in here that you want to clarify, that you really think is important, or challenge to say like, hey, why are we doing that? I'm not sure I can handle it. They don't have to have come up with it to get buy-in, to really feel like, hey, my voice is, I said that I wasn't sure what you meant by be appropriate. So I asked for a little clarification there, right? So synergy, not democracy. You decide how much time and energy. The biggest mistake in the entire world, 2 of them. 1, just put it up there. Those are my rules, do it. 2nd, I don't have time to do this. I teach chemistry, I teach math, it's going to come back to you again and again and again if you're intense and intentional early on. This was a teacher standard of excellence, which I just loved. And again, you can tell why. The values, respect, honesty, kindness, perseverance that he's going after, Mr. Shenik really gets these down into what does it look and sound and feel like. I'll talk about this a little bit more, but this is taking the value and cutting it up into bite-sized pieces. Honor commitments. I'll make only statements that add value and stick to the purpose at hand. By the way, side comments, funny comments, humorous comments, comments to a pal sitting next to you. This covers the whole of them. Can I go get a drink? Not now, right? Those impulsive things that we're doing, does that add value? Is that what we're going after? I'll come to meetings prepared and determined to contribute. I'll offer alternative proposals to those things I disagree with. This sucks. This is stupid. The grenade thrower, right? Do you have an alternative? Would it be possible for us to do 3 written problems instead of 6? And I want an alternative so I can see that you're thinking, not just chucking grenades. I'll look for how we can rather than why we can't. I'll avoid working in isolation. We know kids are struggling. If you're struggling, avoid isolation. You get where I'm going with this. If you're sitting there thinking, my teachers have, look, I know how many award-winning schools and award-winning teachers there are on this call. What I'm saying to you is calibrate, 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 refresh, get it more focused. If you've got those rules, anything that is not calibrated to what we need for right now, revise, adapt, or abandon. Imagine you're packing to go hike a mountain. All this valuable equipment is great. But if you ain't going on a winter hike, then don't carry your sleeping bag and your ice axe. It will put you in danger. What we're doing now is, what do I need for this year, for this classroom? How do I make sure it's calibrated as it can possibly be? Any of these compacts, any of these agreements, any of these norms, any of these conversations, you have to come back and go, how are we going to make sure that we practice, don't punish? Consequences. We've covered this before, but think about what we do when we're tired, we're stressed, we're pressed, we're unhappy, is we go for authoritarian power. We're hungry, we're tired, we're sad. Authoritative parenting and authoritative power, right? It balances press with support. Press with support. Make sure those consequences are relevant, they're respectful, they're reasonable, they're restorative, they're resource building. You want to do a great audit? Ask your teachers. 1, show me your classroom compact rules, norms. 2nd, throw anything out of that bag you think we don't need. 3rd, show me what we're doing on character-based consequences. What'd you do last year? What are you going to do this year? You get where I'm going. Maybe it's just a matter of making sure it's resource building. Maybe it's us collectively saying, let's make sure it's respectful. The harshness of what we're doing. Chip Wood used to say, making kids take a timeout is just preparing them to do time. Do they understand why they're in timeout? What are we asking them to do? Are they reflecting? Make sure it's respectful, make sure it's restorative. This audit tunes up, calibrates, refocuses, maybe what you've always done, but you're just making sure that it's ready for this year, this classroom. I want to talk here about shaping layers of culture. You know, I got that beautiful onion. Character.org, lots of character-based frameworks talk about the multiple layers of culture. The whole school, the grade level, the classroom, the hallway, the playground, the parents. A lot of times when I say intense and intentional, we're just thinking about the kids. They may be at the center of this onion. The corrupting influence of the culture may be in the hallways, in the school, from the parent community. As a leader, you can't fix everything, right? But you can look and ask yourself, look, how intense and intentional are we being? You guidance counselors, you assistant principals, you principals, help those classroom teachers to shape their classroom culture by looking and going out to the whole school community and orienting the whole school to the kinds of things that we're trying to do. One of the things I want to talk about, I want to bring back to your attention, themes, mottos, and touchstones. The way I think about these is that a theme, motto, or touchstone squeezes the light. It squeezes the heat out of your existing values and traditions. I've worked with any number of, again, corporate, athletic, educational settings where, hey, we've got these same old values. We've been talking about the same mission all of these years. A theme has a way of squeezing it. Now, what I'm talking about is what kind of themes might be relevant for what I think schools are needing right now. All right, I'm going to play around with some that I've used. All in. It's a beautiful one where you're asking everybody in the classroom. It's like, look, if you're all in, what do you do? What do you not do? What if you're partially in? What if you're not in at all? I don't do my homework. I distract other people. If I'm all in, I do my job. I help other people. Parents, what's it mean to be all in? Community. You get where I'm going with this. You heard me talk about this quote before. There's just us. I can't fix the problems in the world, in our country. There's just us. There's just this community. And what it comes back to is how we're going to treat each other. So all year long, I want us to really think about the fact that there's just us. If we don't like it, we got to fix it. If our concerts aren't going well and people are really distracted and leaving early, there's just us. There isn't some place where concerts are perfect. We got to fix it. Better today, better tomorrow. The question there is, look, are you better today? Is growth what you're trying to go for? And better tomorrow is always aspirational, but what we're also, little word play there, right? Better tomorrow means if you want a better tomorrow in the world, what it starts with is us learning to do. In this theme or motto, I'm looking for simple, but not simplistic. I'm looking for complexity that is hidden in simplicity, right? Grateful attitude, persistent effort. Really nice t-shirt. But if I start unpacking this thing in every classroom and in the playgrounds, I know what we're going after. Grateful attitude. We think about what we can do, what we do have. This is one that I really like. Choose the better. All things being equal. Choose the thing that is better in the short term and the long term for you and for the good of the community. Choose the better. It's a decision-making mindset, but we're basically saying, look, choose the better. There are lesser responses: moral character, intellectual character, civic character, performance character. Choose the better one. It's a beautiful little nudge. It's a beautiful push. You're right. You do have a right to say that to that other parent. Could you choose a better response? You're right. You don't have to do more than one effort. But the better thing would have been 2, 3, 4. You get where I'm going with these themes and mottos. It's not cheesy, contrived crap. You're not putting a t-shirt on a kid or a parent or a banner up without the intentionality behind that that says, man, this banner is going to get busted out 100 ways deep and 100 ways wide. What Piaget called décollage, horizontal growth. They understand choose the better about health, about mental health, about you get where I'm going. Extend the plus. Give the benefit of the doubt. What we're not doing today is giving people the benefit of the doubt, assuming the best. We assume the worst in what they say, what they think, what they do. That includes teachers thinking about kids. They don't. He just doesn't care. He's hungry. Let's extend the plus. Let's assume the best. Let's assume the best of parents. Let's assume the best. If everybody would simply extend the plus, what would happen to our school? Now, how does extend the plus draw upon values like respect, responsibility, honesty, integrity, etc.? You get where I'm going with this. And then finally, be the change. Be the change in your world so that eventually you can be the change in the world. Let's not think about character education like, hey, someday you're going to go out and cure climate problems or poverty or whatever. Be the change here. Is there something, this is Jerash, right? Sticking your necks out. You see where I'm going with this? What I'm really talking about is if you have one and it still works, great. If you don't, trust me, as an intellectual and physical hoarder of things, don't be afraid to get rid of it. If it ain't working, get rid of it. Go with something fresh. A couple of great mottos that we saw out there in our work, Fenway High School: work hard, be yourself, do the right thing. Simple, not easy, accessible, challenging, good one. I love this one from one of our favorite schools that we visited in our site visit, St. Benedict's Prep. Whatever hurts my brother hurts me. It's a boys' school, so whatever hurts my brothers and sisters, whatever hurts my classmates hurts me. You think about that motto and how challenging it is. Oh, by the way, if you have a motto, is that character education, social and emotional learning, culture development, virtues? Don't care, don't know. Not interested in doing the political thing. This is who we are as a community. And by the way, most people, when they see something like that, look at it and go, that makes sense. Schools put up mottos every single year. Great. You got them hooked. Now let's chop it up and show why we need it within our community. Fruits and roots. If you get your motto right, it communicates what you want to achieve in the culture, what you want it to feel like, what you want it to be like. It also communicates the process. How are we going to get there? What's it going to look and sound and feel like? Fruits and roots. Be the change. Look, that's what I want it to feel like. Just, caring, honest community. Roots. Well, let's make sure that we've got a way to pass the foot up. Let's make sure that our words are aligned with that. Let's make sure you get where I'm going with these things. You may have tried these before. You may have one. Revisit it. Revise it. That idea of the beginner's mind. Get unburdened of what you've done and what you think you know and come back to it with a beginner's mind saying, what is needed for our community right now? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to ask, about, is it time to recalibrate our teaching and learning strengths of character? And I want you to think about this idea of practical good theory. This was our big breakthrough, I think, for character education in a certain way, to move character back beyond moral character to both performance character and moral character. I say back because the Greeks talked about excellence. They talked about basically performance character. But if you think about these words that are on this map, the reason I'm offering you this theory is for you to really look and say, not what the posters on the wall say, not what we've adopted, but what is needed for teaching and learning. If you ask your teachers this, if you reflected yourself, I see a bunch in there that I might not have picked off a couple of years ago. Endurance, passion, imagination. If you look over on that other side, integrity, humility, honor. Is this the honorable thing to say or do, right? So my point is, in going back to this, is these visuals, these ideas. What I'm asking you to do is shop differently. Now, I am not telling you, with just a couple weeks left before school starts, Matt, we already have our pillars, we already have our values. Are you telling us to scrap those? No. I'm trying to think about what they can hold in terms of character strengths as a vessel. This is our newest iteration of that idea of performance and moral character. We call it the pinwheel. Excellence, integrity, teamwork, self-work. it busts it out into a couple more dimensions. Excellence, the crest for greatness, work ethic, goal achievement, problem solving. The stronger your quest for excellence, the more intrapersonal work you're going to have to do. That's where the growth mindset comes in. Integrity. Okay, there's Matt's integrity, teaching him not to lie, cheat, and steal, but go across to teamwork and say, look, I really want to think about the integrity of our community. What we say and what we do, what we don't say. Do you see what I'm going for? I'm asking you to think about your values, and I'm asking you to kind of pull them apart to think about current circumstances, current individuals. I want you to think not only about the strength, but the balance. We're behind in teaching and learning. Everyone knows that. If you go back and you load up exclusively on performance character, you're probably going to make things worse. It has to be balanced with a sense of harmony within, and it has to be balanced within the moral community of the group. You can talk to me all you want about grit. If I'm surrounded by classmates who aren't very nice, aren't very kind, laugh and snicker when I make a mistake, that's going to be a problem. So I'm asking you to recalibrate your values thinking about that. Think about them in terms of performance and intellectual character. Hey, we got these same 6 values this year, but I'm talking about intellectual character. Why? Because we're struggling to have kids write well, to problem solve, to be prepared for STEM, math. We've lost a lot of ground on that kind of stuff. Intellectual character may give those values a whole new kind of relevance. Civic, civility, and civic character. However we called it before, community, teamwork, the idea of civility, of being civil. How do we agree and disagree? You know that kids need this, so do parents. And it may be a great thing that you have responsibility still as the pillar you've had for the last 20 years. But the aspect of responsibility that you're talking about is what we mean by civility. Let me see if I can, chop this up for you in another way. Those values that we've got, that we have, these pillars. Plato had this allegory of the sun. He would say, you can't know the sun directly, you'll go blind. All you know are those individual rays coming off of the sun. The values, those performance character, intellectuals, they have infinite particulars that are needed for today's circumstances, the developmental level where students are. You get where I'm going with this. And what I'm asking you to do is connect the urgent and the important. Important. We do character education, we do values. Urgent. These kids this year really need to work on some very particular kinds of things. I talked a little bit about our partnership with the Ray Center. They happen to be the home of character counts. If you're using the 6 pillars, great. I'm using this as an example of where I would say, look, if you got the 6 pillars and you haven't chopped them up and you haven't calibrated them in a while, they may be causing as much problem as they are good. What I'm saying is I'm giving you an example of a middle school in Iowa that really took and beat that pillar up and thought about it in new and different ways. And what I'm saying is if they were to take those pillars and say, what's this mean for performance character? Trustworthiness. Do your part on the project. Respect. Look, if you respect your people, you actually show up and give effort. You get where I'm going. Calibrate them for all these different kinds of character. Not because it's generally good for kids, but because it's what they need this year. If you only come down with 6 particular things, 6 new relevant things within these pillars that you need for this year, you've calibrated. Plato says you love what you lack. We're turning the sticky side of the note up. We're working on things that kids need, teachers need, parents need. That gives us some more chance that they'll actually use it. I want to give you another freeform one that we did. This was from our Maxims project we did 100 years ago with funding from the Templeton Foundation and guidance from Arthur. And I want to get you thinking about how you break these up and make them new. This was in a middle school. They had the pillar of responsibility. When we talk to people, what do you want kids in middle school to do? What do you want them to not do? They said 3 things: work ethic, positive attitude, perseverance. 3 things. So what I call the 3 faces of responsibility. They were talking about responsibility, this big, bright sun. But when I asked them what were the rays that were not shining down in their classroom or shining forth from their students, they said work ethic, attitude, perseverance. We then connected those values right there with quotes. Any job worth doing is worth doing well. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Calibration, calibration, calibration. Whatever your values are, what I'm asking you to think about, and look what I did here. Michael Josephson would say, Matt, responsibility is a moral character virtue. I would say, Michael, you know what? You're right. It's also a performance character virtue. It's also a civic character virtue. You can bend that light. You can take that strength and that source of power to where your kids are. And when you do, it becomes intense and intentional, and you're actually working out on the muscle that you need. If you haven't calibrated a while, do it. By the way, you don't have to organize the entire year. Organize the first week. Just think about what are the things you want to do better to get yourself rolling. You can do this all year long. What's that value? Why do we use that? What do we really need? Get this stuff out of the pack. Put in what we need. Anytime you got, and think about what I just did there. I took responsibility. I chopped it up. I made sure it was relevant to my classroom, my students. I got the quotes there. I have them reflected on how have I shown responsibility today? How have I failed to show it? How will I show it tomorrow? Turn those lights down at the end of the day. Go back to where we were with our values. And let me just name the elephant in the living room. Wait a minute, Matt. Is that mindfulness training? No, it's good reflective education. You want to put a label on it, that's up to you. But what I'm saying is if it's good for kids, if it's good for classrooms, get away from trying to have any other agenda than to help kids become smart and help them become good and create a classroom where we continuously create the conditions for learning. But just because you got this fancy little graphic and you broke it down, doesn't mean that you ain't going to have to practice. Where you stumble, dig. Go after tomorrow to some of those new things. There's no such thing as justice. There's just us. How did the teacher miss responsibility today? What am I going to do tomorrow? You get where I'm going with this. Let me just, we're coming close here. All right. And I know that I'm throwing stuff at you, and I do that because your time is precious, and I want you to have the tools that you need. We've talked about this tool before. I can't emphasize it enough that if I was thinking about your core values and I was thinking about your culture and I was trying to put an undergirding system to it, I would be thinking about the growth mindset. If you say to me, I know, Carol Dweck, blah, blah, blah. What I would ask you is, do you have anything in your culture, in your values, in your rituals, in your routines that speak to effort, challenges, mistakes, and feedback? Those are the 4 things that trigger the choice of a growth or fixed mindset. So if I know that something is going to require more effort, am I talking about perseverance? What is it? If I know that people don't always like to give more effort, they like to do the minimum. If I know that I'm going to ask you to do a new challenge, how do we speak to, as a culture, how we handle challenges? Do parents know effort, challenges, mistakes, feedback? This creates a growth mindset. Here's what you do that helps. Here's what you're doing that's not helping. I'm shaping that macro culture of the parent culture, but I'm really coming back and calibrating everything. It's social and emotional learning. How does it feel inside of you when you have to try a new challenge that you're not good at? Oh, I feel embarrassed and ashamed. Great. That's great social and emotional learning. It's also great performance character. Everyone feels that. Push through it. You get where I'm going. Knowing that you want to go after growth mindset, one of the simplest things you can do is just calibrate your quotations. Get them up there. You're not tough alone, and you're not at your most confident alone. Why do I have that with growth mindset? Because I don't want any kids in my classroom thinking they got to fix themselves. We all struggle with mistakes, effort, challenges, feedback. You're not tough alone. Hey, who had one of those moments today where they felt terrible and they caught themselves? I did. Tell me about it. You get where I'm going with this. Hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard. You know, that's Tim Noakey, but it was also, if you think about great basketball players who said this, you know, hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard. There are no great writers, only great rewriters. Best is good. Better is best. All we're asking you is to grow and to move and to improve. Why do I have them on the wall? To create a culture so that I can reflect on them, share them, and then create the habits and rituals around the classroom. Again and again, what I've been trying to show you today is what I would call simple, not easy. Simple, not easy strategies to intentionally shape your character and your culture. I'm going to go past a couple of these final slides, and I'm just going to go to summarize here. Success happens twice. You know, that's what they say in performance psychology. Success happens twice. First in your mind and then for real. Part of calibration for character education is thinking about the classroom and the year that you're going to face this year and visualizing it. Have you shaped your macro culture and the microculture? Do you have your theme, your values, your goals? On the micro level, do you have some of those compacts? Do you have some of those tools? Do you have some of those quotes in place? Do you have your norms and agreements? Playground, hallway. Hey, reading group A, reading group B, reading group C. You need what you need. You may need more of them. Do you have self-awareness routines? What's your word? What's your number? What's your highlight? What's your low light? Where you're literally calming the place down. Do you have mistake, recovery, restitution habits? You know, one of the great coaches in women's basketball, Pat Summitt, they had this little routine when she was getting on a player, giving them feedback. She would say 2 points, and then everybody else on the team would have to say rebound. It was a culture reminder that coach just got after you. Don't dwell in the moment. The ball went through the basket. All the coaches would say 2 points. All the classroom would say rebound. We need the 2 points rebound. We need those little own it. If you made a mistake, own it. Make up for it. Learn from it. When we go back and we think about what we're trying to do to make these cultures, I hope you know that I know it's not easy. If it was easy, anybody could do it. I know that everyone is working hard and pressed to do a lot of things. I'm hoping that what I gave you were strategies that you could utilize that would help you do something difficult, but do it in concrete, practical, accessible ways. And again, I hope you're more excited than anxious for the year ahead. More excited than anxious. Whichever we feed grows. So keep feeding that thing you're excited about. Pay attention to those things you're anxious about. But I wish everybody all the success in the coming year. I want to stop now to make sure that we have enough time for some questions and some PSAs at the end. So I'll kick it over to Bill.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for a very inspiring presentation this morning. My opinion is it was the best one yet. I think it really does set the stage for a successful school year. I'm retired, but I wish I was back in school in a way to be able to use some of these things. I'm thinking of Mary too when I say that. There are a lot of great suggestions and strategies, but you're right. This is all about process. This is all about school culture and climate. It's how that is synergistic with NJASECD. And when you focus on this, it provides the foundation. And I'll steal a quote that I've used often, is that this work is not something else on a teacher's plate. It is the plate. And it provides the foundation for the learning environment that every student needs to be successful. So Matt, thank you very much for all of your effort and enthusiasm that you put into today. And I hope that everybody else feels the same way that I do about the presentation. So I'd like to share my screen. So Matt, if you would relinquish it to me, that would be great. Thank you. And what I would like to do is I would like to introduce Deborah Cohen, who is working with character.org. And she's got some things that she is working on, some projects that I think would be really interesting to all of you. And if you're not involved with any of them yet, you should think about it. And what I'm going to do is share my screen now, and I'm on the wrong slide. So it's over to you, Deb.
Thank you, Bill. Yep, that's the right slide. I wanted to mention programs that character.org has that you can all share and promote in your school and in your network. We've got some really exciting things coming up this year. Once again, we will be running the Laws of Life essay contest that gives students a chance to reflect on core values and tell us why this is important to them. Just as Matt was talking about how important these things are, it's really important for students to think about that and to talk about why these things are critical to them. This year, we've got some new changes going on. We have a lot of things coming up, so watch our website for that. I'm also working on a workshop that we're going to be offering for teachers and school leaders about academic integrity. We all know from my years working in the West Windsor-Plainsboro School District, we all talk about academic integrity. We all have great things up on the wall to remind students about academic integrity and honesty in school. But we also know it's a pervasive issue that we need to be able to address. And so in these workshops, we will talk about the current trends, what the research says about academic integrity, and most importantly, walk away with ideas on how you can help your students to demonstrate honesty every day in the classroom and in the school community. And lastly, we introduced a program last year called the High School Leadership Academy. This was a terrific group of kids, including many from the state of New Jersey, who came together virtually with Arthur Schwartz and myself. And they interviewed about 100 people across the world of all ages. And they asked them 3 questions. They asked, what is one quote you repeat to yourself that helps you be your best self? When it comes to living your core values, what would you say to your 10-year-old self? And what do you want your character legacy to be? And then the staff at character.org compiled this into 45-second inspirational messages that were shared on TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram that I hope you all saw. And if you didn't, you can look for them. You can find them on our social media. And this was a totally student-created, student-managed campaign about these qualities, these core values. And we're hoping and we're hopeful that it made an impact. So we'll be launching that again to do a similar type of campaign. And hopefully you'll have high school students that you'll recommend for this, and we'll have another successful year. So please, Bill said he's going to share this. My email address is very simple. If I can answer any questions, please reach out, and please let me know how I can help you share this with your network, with your school, and get more students involved. Thanks, Bill.
Well, thank you, Deborah. These are 3 really tremendous initiatives, and I hope that that you'll learn more about them. You can find out about them either through Deborah or on the character.org website. And I think that these are tremendous. I've known a lot about laws of life for many years. We all believe that academic integrity is really important, and it's lacking in so many places today. And to engage high school students in a leadership capacity on a national level is absolutely a stellar idea. So I think all these are great. I'm going to make a little bit of a shameless promotion here. I'm also a member, one of the charter members, as is NJASECD, of SEL for New Jersey. SEL for New Jersey is a part of SEL for the United States, SEL for US. Maurice Elias, who most of you know very well, is one of the co-founders of this organization, along with Jim Vetter and Nova Bureau from Massachusetts. It's a great organization. So I would like to encourage you. You can take out your cell phone right this minute if you want, if you're not already a member, and click selfornewjersey.org and there's an opportunity to join that organization. And one of the things that we've done in the past, and we'll do again this year, is participated in SEL Day, which is an international thing that's co-sponsored by SEL for US and the Urban Assembly Schools in New York. Some of you may know of David Adams. He's another very important force in this work nationally. And you can also go on selday.org and you can sign up for that to get information about that event. New Jersey led the world the last couple of years in the number of schools that were participating in SEL Day in one way or another. We had one particular school that led the world in the number of badges and participation, and that was Tom Santos' Zane North Elementary School in Collingswood. So we're very proud of that, and I invite you to get on there and join. Before we get done today, I just want to do another shameless plug for NJASECD. Our organization is an all volunteer organization, which means we're always looking for good volunteers. We have a bunch, but we could always use more. And one of the things that we particularly do is we try to spread the word about the importance of SECD throughout the state of New Jersey and beyond, actually. One of the things that's important about that is that we would like to see every one of New Jersey's 2,400 schools be a school of character. We also realize that's a big chunk of work, and we also know that it's important to do it one school at a time. So if you want to get with us and help us spread the word to schools in your district, to schools, your school if you're not already a school of character, or help us do that work, you can get in touch with us, njsecd@gmail. I should have made a slide for this, at gmail.com, and let us know, and we will find a way to give you an opportunity to volunteer with us in whatever level and whatever amount of time that you have available. And finally, I would like to thank everyone today for participating in this call. And again, I'd like to particularly thank Matt for what was for me a very inspiring hour and a half of great ideas to help everybody be enthusiastic in a tough time to get back to school and to spread the word to your teachers and to your students and to your parents and to your community about how important all of these things really are in providing students with a balanced notion of what it is to be successful in school and, more importantly, in life. So a final thanks to Arthur and Deborah from character.org. Thanks to Brandon and to Phil from Pennsylvania, New York, and to all of our NJASECD folks who were on this call. So with that, if anyone has a comment or a question, I'll stay on the line. But with that, I'd like to thank all of you and end our workshop for today. So thank you very much, and keep your ears open because we're going to do this again.
Thank you, Matt.
Take care, everyone.